Hey there, my name is Shane Craddock, and this is the Inner Edge podcast, where I share a different take on how to lead and live a sustainable, high-performance life. Over the course of different episodes, I'm going to challenge the belief that tension, stress, and struggle are essential to success and creativity. My experience is that there's an easier way, there's a better way, and indeed there's an essential way that we need to explore for the times that we live in. So let's go ahead, let's jump in and explore. Hey there, welcome to the Inner Edge with me. Who am I anyway? Shane Craddock, that's who I am, wherever he is. Welcome to the show. Summer has well and truly arrived in Ireland as I'm recording this. It looks like it's going to be a cracker of a few days here in Ireland in early July 2022. And it's good timing from my point of view because I'm about to take some time off. So the next couple of episodes might be a little bit shorter than normal. Let's see how we get on. I might surprise myself. Today's episode is, regardless of its length, is quite a profound one if you consider the implications of it. And the title that I put on it is, A Mind Unquestioned is a Very Dangerous Thing. A mind unquestioned is a very dangerous thing. Bottom line, you don't need to believe you're thinking. In fact, I would say that it's a dangerous thing to believe you're thinking all of the time. So let's just dig into this a little bit and see, can you uncover an angle yourself that might be relevant for you to advance your clarity or your results or your performance or your relationships or indeed your health. So the first thing is, I suppose you have to ask yourself, well, what is a mind? Now, I'm not going to get into that on this particular episode, but the fact is that you have a mind. If you're talking to a neuroscientist, they might say something like, well, your mind is the brain in action, which to their paradigm makes sense. If you look up the dictionary, you'll probably see something along the lines of, mind is what allows us to experience life, which also has validity. For me personally, I think the mind is a programmable field of energy. It's a field of energy, though, foremost, that is programmable. And we do program it with things like useful habits like eating or reading or how to drive a car, how to use a computer, how to use a podcast, how to record a podcast. By repetition, we learn things. That's very useful. But a lot of our thinking, you have to think about, where is it coming from? So some of it's coming from habits and that kind of knowledge that we've learned. A lot of it's coming from our past, which can be a little bit random. Some of that past may be emotional, sometimes traumatic, but it's very, very random. But the bottom line is that your mind, by its nature, will generate thinking. It is a thought-generating machine. The problem is that nobody really told us that. Where's that thinking come from? What's the nature of it? What I'm saying to you is that most of that thinking is coming from the past. If it's coming from the past, well, then it's compromised immediately because it doesn't know the future. And if it's coming from the past, it can really put a filter on what you think about in the present, how you even think about the past, but more importantly, the impact that it has on what you create in your future. I was talking to somebody only a few days ago who is a very smart person, very smart leader. And they were saying to me, look, maybe I need to go talk to somebody professional. As in a counselor, they were talking about CBT. And I'm a fan of doing whatever you need to do. But from what I understood of this person, there doesn't seem to be any specific trauma in their past. So I don't always believe that that's necessary. And I'm somebody who has gone to counseling, who's a fan of it. But also I'm aware from my perspective as to the limitations that models like that have. And I was saying to him that because I knew this guy, I said, look, I think that maybe your mind is kind of giving you thinking that it's telling you a problem, to focus on a problem that really isn't a problem. It's bringing you down a rabbit hole, perhaps into the rabbit warren itself. And you get lost in analysis. And I think that's when people get lost in their minds. And I'll come back to this again, because to me, you see, most people don't lead their minds. They let their mind lead them. I remember when I was, if you've listened to some of the other podcasts early on in this particular Inner Edge series, especially one of the first 4 or 5, you'll know that I had a severe bout of depression when I was in my mid-20s, kind of depression that sometimes you don't get through. And I was very lucky because I was suicidal and I managed to get through it. but not without pain, not without effort, and not without being just persistent in trying to find a different way. Now, one of the things that I realized early on, but it took a long time for it to stick, if I'm being really honest, is I realized that I didn't need to believe everything that I was thinking. I probably didn't have the same clarity on it, then as I do now. Definitely I'm more clear on it now, because for me, the way I look at it now, well, 90% of my thinking is coming from the past. So why would I really give it that level of credibility? I would say 5 to 10% of what I think about is coming from someplace else. It's coming from what Joseph Jaworski, who I interviewed recently, what he would call the source. Somebody else might call that your intuition, your deeper wisdom, universal energy, universal intelligence. There's so many different names for it. But that's the source of thinking that I'm most interested in, because it's much more creative. It's much more holistic in the true meaning of the word. And so going back to my friend who said, look, I think there's something wrong with me. I said, look, honestly, I said, go to the counselor if you want to just check that box. But for me, I think there's your mind is fooled you into thinking there's something wrong with the way, something wrong with you. I think that what's wrong is that you're giving too much attention to that thought, too much weight that there's something wrong. I said, well, what if there's not? What if it's just about applying yourself to the bit that you know? And at the very least, why aren't you questioning your mind? I said, this guy would be an expert in certain things in business. And I would say, okay, well, credibility for that part of your mind is very high. But even still, you'd still say, well, is it the right thing for the future? Because things are changing so fast. But when it comes to opinions of psychology, I said, what's your credibility level? He said, well, it's quite low. I said, exactly. So why you believe in your mind? So, as I said, this is a little punchy, short episode. Probably to come to one point for you here, which is just think about the various roles or the areas of your life right now and just identify one where there's an issue. Maybe it's a specific project. Maybe it's a specific goal. Maybe it's a specific person in your work, or maybe it's a specific relationship in your life. Maybe it's your health. What I'm saying is tune into what your thinking is about that. Tune into what your mind is telling you about that. And what I'm now saying to you is question its credibility. The mind is very compelling. It's like having one of the best lawyers in the world arguing for your point, for your thought. It can be very convincing. But that needs to be questioned. That needs to be challenged. We're living in a world right now where a lot of leaders are just doing what their mind says. They don't question themselves, don't allow anybody else to question them. And that's a problem. That's not healthy. We all need to question it. And as my friend said to me, so, well, how do I know when like a better thought comes in that's truer to source? I said, look, the reality is that you can never be guaranteed, but generally it has a feeling. If you're working on keeping your mind clear, I'm a fan of this podcast anyway, that my work at its center is very much helping people to be more consistent with being at a higher level of their state, of their mood. That is at the core of my own approach, is what I know works. And when my state is at a higher level, my thinking seems to be at a higher level, higher quality. But even then, I don't trust it. I don't believe it. And forgive me, because, when you get up one morning and your mind has convinced you to take your own life, well, then why would I? Can you imagine if that was a person? You wouldn't trust them. They might say sorry and look for forgiveness, and I forgive them. But you wouldn't trust them fully. And you're right not to. So why would you believe your mind? So have a think about that. And if you have a question or a thought, send me an email, shane@shanecraddock.com. So don't believe everything your mind tells you. Question it. Ciao. Bye-bye.